Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place you turn to when you want to get past the noise and really understand the story.
And today we're tackling one that just refuses to fade away.
That's right, the Jeffrey Epstein case. Even years after his death, the sheer amount of talk, of speculation, it's kind of staggering. It feels less like just a news story now and more like I don't know, a cultural marker.
It really does. It's become this focal point for so many anxieties and suspicions floating around. It mixes these hard facts we do know with, well, persistent rumors and this deep public skepticism.
Exactly. And that's what we want to unpack today. We're going to dive deep into the latest around the so-called Epstein files, the political maneuvering, and importantly, how this all connects with American public opinion and, yes, conspiracy theories.
Yeah, and we've got a good stack of sources to guide us. We're looking at recent polls from Quinnipiac, Reuters, Ipsos, some solid analysis from places like Politico, Newsweek, Al Jazeera, Forbes.
And we're also drawing on some background understanding of how conspiracy theories actually work, sort of the psychology behind them.
Right. Our goal here isn't just to tell you what's happening, but to help you connect the dots, understand why it's resonating so much, and maybe see how it fits into, bigger trends in society.
Okay, so there's obviously a lot of speculation swirling. Let's start with the basics. What exactly are these Epstein files we keep hearing about? What's actually in them?
Good place to start. So the Epstein files, it's basically a shorthand for this enormous collection of documents gathered during the federal investigations into Epstein. We're talking court records, flight logs from his jets, his contact books.
Which got a lot of attention.
Oh, definitely. Plus, victim testimonies, which are crucial, and digital evidence. Now, parts of these files have been released over time by the DOJ and the FBI.
And they do name names, right? Which is part of the reason for all the focus.
They do include names and associations, yes. But it's really important to stress that just because someone's name appears doesn't automatically mean they were involved in any wrongdoing. It could just mean they knew him, flew on a plane, or in a phone book.
Okay, so that's what the files are. But what about the official reviews? Has the government actually looked through all this and said anything definitive?
They have. There was a major review concluded relatively recently in 2025 by the DOJ and FBI. And it was pretty exhaustive.
How exhaustive?
We're talking 300 gigabytes of data. Over 10,000 files examined, including, really sensitive material related to child sexual abuse, videos, images.
Wow. Okay, so what was their bottom line after looking at all that?
Their conclusion was stated very clearly. They found no, quote-unquote, client list of the type people speculate about. They found no evidence of widespread blackmail using compromising material. And critically, they stated there was no basis found to open new investigations beyond the crimes Epstein himself was known for, and obviously prosecuting those involved with him, like Maxwell.
And they also addressed his death again.
Yes. High-level investigators involved in that review explicitly reaffirmed the finding that Epstein's death was a suicide. And importantly, the decision was made not to release further documents from this trove.
Okay, so that's the official word. No secret list, no new cases stemming from this batch of files. But that leads to the big disconnect, doesn't it? Because public belief seems different.
Massively different. And that's maybe the core of the story right now. The gap between the official findings and the sheer persistence of public suspicion is vast. It really shows how deep skepticism towards official narratives runs.
Before we get deeper into that skepticism, what about Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's key accomplice? Where does she fit into the latest developments?
Right. So Maxwell was convicted back in 2021, sentenced to 20 years for her role. More recently, though, the House Oversight Committee actually issued a subpoena for her.
Interesting, to testify.
Presumably, yes, though the specifics of what they hope to learn aren't fully public. And around the same time, former President Trump requested that the DOJ seek the release of more grand jury materials related to the case.
Grand jury materials. This
Yeah.
usually kept secret, right?
Exactly. It's testimony and evidence presented during the investigation phase, usually sealed to protect witnesses and the integrity of the process. It would typically require a judge's order to unseal it.
So the official story is set, Maxwell's situation is ongoing. But you can't talk about Epstein without talking about Donald Trump. Let's pivot to his connection and how his story on this has evolved.
Yeah, the Trump-Epstein connection is definitely a significant part of this whole saga. They knew each other, were social acquaintances for quite a while.
When exactly?
Roughly from the late 1980s through to the mid-2000s. They were seen at parties together. And famously, Trump flew on Epstein's private jet.
How many times?
The record shows 7 times between 1993 and 1997.
7 times. And then there's that quote, the one from 2002.
Ah, yes, where Trump called Epstein a terrific guy
Yeah.
and said he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side.
It's pretty jarring to hear now.
It certainly lands differently today, yeah. Then you have those photos from Mar-a-Lago in 2010. Trump, Melania Knauss before they were married, Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell all together.
And there were specific flights mentioned in testimonies too, weren't there?
Yes, specifically a flight in 2001 to Trump's casino in Atlantic City. Court documents mention that underage victims Virginia Zertree and Johanna Stroberg were reportedly on that flight. Stroberg later testified Giuffre couldn't gamble because she had issues with her ID, suggesting she was underage.
Right. And then there was the whole thing with the birthday letter. What was that about?
Ah, the letter. The Wall Street Journal reported on this birthday note allegedly sent from Trump to Epstein. It apparently had a kind of risque drawing on it and ended with something like, "Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret."
Another wonderful secret. Wow. How did Trump respond to that report?
He vehemently denied writing it, called it fake news, standard response, and threatened to sue the Wall Street Journal and Rupert Murdoch over the story.
So when did they actually have a falling out?
It seems to have happened around 2004, reportedly over a real estate deal in Florida. After that, their public interactions seemed to drop off significantly.
Okay, so that's the history. But then fast forward to after Epstein's death in 2019. Trump made some very public statements then, didn't he?
He did. Right after Epstein died, Trump publicly demanded a full investigation into the circumstances.
And then during the 2024 campaign, he made promises, right?
Explicit promises, yes. He said he would release information about the Epstein case if elected, and he appointed Pam Bondi as Attorney General.
And Bondi commented on this specifically.
She did. She went on Fox News in February of 2025 and said, regarding the Epstein files, quote, "It's sitting on my desk right now to review."
Sitting on my desk. That sounds pretty active.
It does. But then you contrast that statement with the DOJ memo that came out later, the one we just discussed from July 7th, 2025.
Right, the one that said no client list, no new investigations.
Exactly. So there's a clear gap between that promise of review and release and the official outcome stated by the DOJ under his administration.
That's a pretty stark contrast. So how has Trump reacted more recently since that DOJ memo came out and people keep asking about it?
His public stance has been largely dismissive and defensive. He's labeled the continuing reports and questions as fake news and a Democrat hoax.
Has he addressed it directly when asked?
There was one instance where a reporter asked him about Epstein, and he responded pretty sharply, saying something like, "I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this," referencing other major events happening. Basically, deflection.
And he's even gotten angry with his own base over this?
Apparently so. Reports surfaced of him being frustrated with supporters who were pushing Epstein conspiracy theories, allegedly calling them weaklings, and saying he didn't want their support anymore if they kept focusing on it.
That's quite a reaction. So while Trump is trying to push the story away, someone else seems determined to keep it front and center. Elon Musk.
Ah, yes. Musk has jumped into this whole thing with, characteristic enthusiasm, you might say, almost gleefully using it, particularly against the Trump administration.
What has he actually done or said?
Well, back in June 2025, he put out a tweet. He deleted it later, mind you, but it flat out alleged Trump is in the Epstein files. He suggested that this supposed secret was the reason the full files weren't being released.
That's a huge claim, deleted or not.
Absolutely. And he hasn't let up. He consistently calls the situation a cover-up, demands transparency, asking things like, "Where is phase 2?" implying there's more to come that's being hidden.
He even used some kind of counter.
Yeah, he reportedly used an arrest counter on X to highlight the fact that 0 new arrests had been made based on the recent file reviews. He's even apparently asked Grok, his AI chatbot on X, questions about Epstein.
So he's really leveraging his platform.
Massively. And comments he makes, like, "Many powerful people want that list suppressed," they really resonate. It taps directly into that anti-establishment sentiment, the whole drain the swamp idea that was part of Trump's appeal.
And the fact that he controls X, the platform itself.
That's key. He has immense power through the algorithm to shape what millions of people see, to amplify certain narratives, especially on issues like this that touch on core beliefs about power, secrecy, and Trump himself.
It's a fascinating dynamic. You have Trump trying to distance himself, Musk pouring gasoline on the fire, which brings us to the public. What are people thinking? Let's look at the polls.
Okay, yeah, the polls paint a really interesting picture. A Quinnipiac University poll from mid-July 2025 asked voters about the Trump administration's handling of the Epstein files.
And the results.
Overwhelmingly negative.
Yeah.
63% disapproved, only 17% approved.
Wow, 63% disapproval. Is that partisan or across the board?
It cut across party lines significantly. 83% of Democrats disapproved, sure, but so did 71% of independents. And even among Republicans, it was basically a split 40% approved, but 36% disapproved.
Yeah.
It's notable.
Very notable. Any other polls show something similar?
Yeah, a Reuters Ipsos poll around the same time found that 69% of Americans overall believe the government is hiding Epstein-related files. Huge number.
69% think something's being hidden.
Right. And on Trump's handling specifically, only 17% approved in that poll, though Republican approval was a bit higher at 35%. Interestingly, 82% of Democrats in that poll believed a suppressed client list exists.
So the belief in a hidden list is strong, especially among Democrats, even though the DOJ says it doesn't exist.
Exactly. As Tim Malloy, the Quinnipiac polling analyst, put it, Epstein has been dead and gone for years, but his tawdry legacy looms large in a country wanting to know more about who he knew and whether secrets have been buried with him. That sums it up pretty well.
So with that kind of public sentiment, how are the Democrats playing this politically?
Well, they're definitely seizing the opportunity. You see Democrats pretty much coast to coast, as one report put it, using this to paint Republicans, and particularly the Trump administration, as corrupt or looking out for powerful interests.
What's the specific angle?
It feeds into that narrative of two systems of justice. You had one Democratic consultant, Saba Abur, saying it just confirms one system is for the powerful and one for everyone else.
Are big names getting involved?
Yeah, figures like Governor Gavin Newsom in California, Governor J.B. Pritzker in Illinois, they're publicly invoking Epstein, pointing to Trump's unfulfilled promises about releasing files, trying to paint him as disingenuous.
It seems like an unusual issue, maybe bridging gaps between different groups.
Kind of. A state senator in New York, Brad Holman Segal, actually called it an unholy alignment between some Maggier supporters and Democrats who both want more information, seeing it as a potential wedge issue to peel off Trump voters.
A wedge issue, like the hack-a-shack tactic one expert called it.
Exactly. Paul Mitchell, a political data guy. The idea is you force your opponent into an uncomfortable position where they look bad, like fouling a poor free throw shooter.
Yeah.
Democrats are trying to force Republicans to publicly defend the DOJ's findings, which plays poorly with the skeptical public.
So how are Republicans responding to this pressure? Are they unified?
Not entirely, which makes it tricky for them. You have some prominent Republicans trying to downplay the story, shift focus. Speaker Mike Johnson, for instance, adjourned the House reportedly to avoid a potentially awkward vote on releasing more files.
But not everyone in the GOP is on board with downplaying it.
No. You've got internal divisions. Someone like former VP Mike Pence has actually called for more disclosure. But then others, like Representative Derek Van Orden from Wisconsin, initially pushed for release but seem to have backed off a bit more recently. It's not a united front.
And what's the counter-argument from Republicans who think this won't stick?
Some just scoff at the idea that this will have long-term political impact. They argue that, at the end of the day, voters care more about the economy, about kitchen table issues, not these complex conspiracy-tinged controversies. Time will tell on that one.
Okay, this brings us right to the heart of it, really. Conspiracy theories. The Epstein saga seems like perfect fuel for them. Let's define our terms. What is a political conspiracy theory in this kind of context?
Broadly speaking, it's the belief that major political events or situations aren't what they seem on the surface. Instead, they're seen as the result of secret plots, secretive collusion by powerful individuals or groups.
And these groups are usually seen as having bad intentions.
Generally, yes. The idea is they're striving to harm a rival group, undermine societal values, or just maintain their own illicit power. It's about hidden actors pulling strings behind the scenes.
Why do cases like Epstein's seem to breed these theories so effectively? What's the psychology?
Well, experts suggest they often stem from a kind of circumstantial fear or a feeling of powerlessness, frustration with one's own disenfranchisement, as one source put it.
So it's a way to make sense of things when you feel anxious or left out.
Exactly. They tend to spike during periods of significant social, political, or economic change or upheaval. They offer an explanation, albeit a conspiratorial one, that helps people rationalize their anxiety or unease about complex, unsettling events.
There was a quote about that, something about unwelcome reality.
Yeah, Frank Donner, a civil liberties lawyer from back in the 80s, talked about them as exaggerated, febrile explanations of unwelcome reality. He said they highlight this weird contrast between how capable we think our society is and how fragile our actual confidence in institutions often is.
And that lack of confidence seems key here.
Absolutely critical. A general lack of trust in government is a huge factor. Pew Research data shows public trust in the federal government has been languishing below 50% pretty much consistently since the early 2000s, since the Bush administration. That creates a vacuum that alternative, often conspiratorial explanations rush into.
Is this tendency to believe in conspiracies more of a left-wing or right-wing thing?
That's what's so interesting. Research, like that from political scientist Joseph Uczynski, suggests it's actually pretty evenly spread. Belief in conspiracy theories cuts across all political parties, ideologies, socioeconomic levels.
So it's not just one side.
No. As Uczynski put it, both sides are equally conspiratorial in their thinking. No one has a monopoly. It seems to be more about a general mindset or a way of processing information in an era of low trust, rather than being tied to one specific political viewpoint.
And how does the media landscape, especially social media, fit into this picture?
Oh, it plays a massive role. Social media algorithms are often designed to show you more of what you already like or agree with. This creates echo chambers, or filter bubbles.
Where you only hear confirming views.
Precisely. So if you're inclined to believe a certain conspiracy theory, the algorithm feeds you more content reinforcing that belief. It makes it harder to encounter counter-evidence. Think about figures like Alex Jones and InfoWars. They built huge audiences by feeding extreme content to like-minded individuals within those echo chambers.
It really solidifies belief. Now, Newsweek had an interesting piece highlighting two very different takes on the Epstein files, right? Nina Turner and Peter Roth.
Yeah, it's a good illustration of the divide. Nina Turner framed it primarily as a moral issue. For her, it's about getting justice for Epstein's victims and exposing what she calls a two-tier legal system where the rich and powerful get away with things.
So focus on the victims and systemic inequality.
Right. She argued that the focus shouldn't just be on the political fallout, but on the fundamental question of accountability for horrific crimes.
And Peter Roth's view?
Diametrically opposed. He basically dismissed the whole continued focus as a wild conspiracy theory, a political game of gotcha gone horribly off the rails.
He thinks it's just politics.
Pretty much. He argued that people pushing the conspiracy angle don't actually care about the victims. They're just using it to score political points against Trump or other figures. He doubted any further investigation would yield anything worthwhile.
Two completely different ways of seeing the exact same situation. What's the broader danger when these kinds of theories gain so much traction?
Well, as Nina Jankovic, who briefly served as the U.S. disinformation czar, pointed out, the real danger is that they erode trust. Not just trust in specific politicians or institutions, but trust in the entire infrastructure of democracy, in elections, in the justice system, in the media.
And there's a money angle, too.
There is. We're seeing that conspiracy-driven content can be highly engaging, which means it can be monetized effectively online. This creates a financial incentive to produce and spread this kind of content, which further fragments the media landscape and makes it even harder for people to find reliable, shared facts.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've looked at the official findings on the Epstein files, the stark contrast with public opinion, the political maneuvering by Trump, Musk, Democrats, Republicans.
And we've dug into the underlying role of conspiracy theories, why they take root, especially when trust is low, and how the media environment fuels them.
It really feels like this Epstein story, more than just being about the specifics of the case, has become this kind of prism. It reflects back some really fundamental things about where we are as a society right now.
I think that's right. It forces us to confront some difficult questions. When you have this situation where the lines between established facts, potent political narratives, and deeply rooted speculation get so incredibly blurred, it leaves you wondering.
Yeah, it really does. The final thought maybe is this. In an environment like this, how do you, listening right now, actually decide what's credible? What information do you trust, and what does that whole process mean for the future of public discourse and ultimately public trust itself?